I am recording. Okay. Hopefully they'll be able to hear me. Well, I'll stay near this. Hi, I'm Christine Cohen. I am the author of The Winter King and The Sinking City, which are both young adult fantasy novels. And I'm also the author of the upcoming book, The Second Greatest Thief, which is coming out February of next year with Viking Penguin. So I write children's books. I love writing them. I'm also the director of, as I was explaining, Camperdown MFA program, which is a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing program. And so one of the things that I think about a lot, because I read a lot of admissions packets, and I think about voice a lot, and particularly about what it is to have a unique voice. And I feel like that can be a pretty ambiguous thing, you know. Everyone is sort of, people will say, like, if you've gotten rejections from editors or agents, you know, well, I just didn't really connect with the voice. And you're like, what does that mean? Or it'll say in the, you know, in a review, like, it had such a unique voice. And I think that a lot of times, okay, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. We will talk about what voice is first. James Scott Bell, if any of you have read any of his craft books, he has, I think, a really great definition for voice, which is character, background, and language, filtered through the author's heart and rendered with craft on the page. Wow. So what I love about that quote, character, background, and language, filtered through the author's heart and rendered with craft on the page, I like that because as I was reading that, I was like, you know, it gives us one variable, one constant, and one blend. So the variable here being your character, right? Who are they? What is their gender, their age? Do they have siblings? Their occupation, income bracket, education level, right? The demographics of the character is going to influence their voice. What do they love, fear, want, need? These are all character-based questions. What is their backstory? You know, what is their ghost story? Are you familiar with the idea of the ghost story? It's the idea that we all have misconceptions about the world. Frequently they come from some event that happened earlier on in our life, particularly for your characters. Something that happened before the story started, an event maybe, that caused them to see themselves or the world in a broken way that the story is then going to address and fix, right? That could be a whole workshop in and of itself, but we won't go there. What is their moral compass? So these are all the things in the voice that are going to be influenced just by who your character is. Then the constant, of course, is you. How do you view the world? What do you choose to highlight or point to your worldview, your tastes, your preferences? I loved what Andy was saying about, you know, write what you know doesn't mean that you have to be a heart surgeon in order to write a story about a heart surgeon. What it's really talking about is what are the emotional truths that God has taught you that you can pass on to other people. So for instance, when I wrote The Winter King, has anyone read Till We Have Faces? Okay, yes. It's my all-time favorite book ever. It's one of C.S. Lewis's lesser-known books, I think. He actually thought, there's a letter in which, no, I can't, I only have an hour. Okay, so this is an interesting story. I know. So he, in a letter that he wrote shortly before that book came out, he said he was so confident this was going to be his best book. This is going to be his most loved. And it came out and nobody understood it. People were like, what the heck is this? And I think that's actually probably really crushing for him. But I now carry on the tradition of trying to get everyone to read Till We Have Faces because it's my favorite story. Particularly what I love about it is that Orwell, the main character, has just this incredible misbelief about who she is, what the nature of the gods. You know, she's in a pre-Christian world, and it all just is flipped on its head. She has this incredible moment of revelation near the end of the story. So when I wrote The Winter King, I had a late-term miscarriage. I lost a little boy, and I was so angry with God. And I was so scared. And I was reacting in a way that it was me feeling like I was justified in my anger because of what had happened. And I had truly a moment where the Lord was like, what it was kind of that Job moment of like, who do you think you are that you should be able to say, no, I'm going to write the story. I could have written a better story for myself, God. So that was my moment of having that emotional truth, and that was what I did with The Winter King. It's not a story about a miscarriage, but it's a story about a young girl who is just in major hardship and is angry with the gods and needs to essentially have that moment of revelation and repentance. So I've never lived in a Nordic world in the 900s, but I have that emotional truth that I can share. So that was the constant, me writing what I know. Last thing about voice is the blend here, craft. And this is where, how are you choosing to tell your character story? This is why you can pick up a book by an author who writes, an adult fantasy novel, a children's fiction story, a thriller, a memoir, and they all, you can tell like, oh, this is the voice of this person who I know, because that stays consistent across genres, because it's still you. So those are the three parts to voice, and particularly with craft, we're talking about things like diction, word choices, syntax, sentence length and structure, tone, which is the emotional attitude toward the subject. We're going to look through, after we talk about this, we're going to look at a bunch of samples, because I think that's the best way to learn, is by reading well-written words. So imagery, the types of metaphors and sensory details that a narrator gravitates towards, and then worldview, again, how they interpret the events. So that's what we're looking for, I think, in voice. Is, do you write a lot of short, quick sentences? Do you write longer sentences? Do you vary them? How much world building do you put in? Some writers are really known for what's called the transparent voice. So you get someone like Michael Crichton or James Patterson, or people who have like a really strong high concept. Like they're trying to deliver a story to you, like a great what if. What if there was a theme park with dinosaurs? And they're like, hear me out. You don't really care all that much about, no one's reading that for the similes and metaphors. We're reading that because we want to see what would happen in a theme park with dinosaurs. So why world building? Why not character? I think that, often when people talk about voice, they start with the character, like, let's make the character really voicey. But I would submit, this is what I've been thinking about a lot this year, is the characters are, of course, products of their environment, right? Whenever we say, if you talk to somebody and they're like, well, I'm a middle child, we all know what that means, like what you're implying, the product that you are of that particular environment. If anybody's read Born Fighting, how the Scots-Irish, what's it, I can't remember what it's, did I write it down? I thought about it. How the Scots-Irish Shaped America, that book, it's a nonfiction. It's really fascinating. But he's just talking about like the Scots-Irish, they immigrated from Scotland, Ireland, they come to the Appalachian area, and we suddenly have this like the same type of people, but now in a different, in a different geography, but we see the same products of that environment. And they kind of intentionally picked places that I think they were like highlands, hollers, we've got this. So that's why we talk about world building. Environment is conveyed through vivid world building. One of the best ways to get people to remember your story is to make it feel so real, right? And that the way that you accomplish that is through the voice that you choose, the diction, the tone, the syntax. So that's why we're talking world building. And hopefully this is my next slide. Oh, yes, it is. Good. Okay. It's not just for fantasy novels. I don't know where you all are, what you're all writing. Are most of you doing novels? Yes, for the most part? Okay. It's fine if you're not. This is still for you. But the importance of creating a world, if you think of some of your favorite, even modern novels, I'm actually reading The Great Gatsby right now, again. Whew, it's a trip. But he does such a great job of making you feel that Gilded Age, I just can't remember, is it end of the 1920s? Well, early 20th century it just comes alive because of the details that he chooses to share and how they're shared. So this is sights, sounds, smell, taste, touch. We talk about this a lot in my MFA program. The amount of times that I say the word visceral is probably driving people insane. But it really is, you think of like when you smell a familiar scent and it just takes you back to a moment. Or you hear something and a song and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm 16 again driving in the car with the windows down, because that was, like you associate, I think you associate memories most of the time through smell, touch, sound, possibly even more than just sight. So, and then, yes, mood, pacing, general vibes. This would be, so for instance, are any of you familiar with Miyazaki films? Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke. So Miyazaki is a Japanese filmmaker. He does their animated films. And they have a very distinct vibe. I refer to it as like the exploratory vibe, because I actually loved putting on those movies for my kids when they were little, because they're so slow, and what he's inviting you to do is just explore the world with the characters. The plot meanders. We're really just meant to sort of sit and soak in the story, as opposed to something like The Incredibles, or a lot of modern animated films where it's just this like constant bombardment of sights and sounds. And like, if we don't have a flashy light, the children won't watch it. And I couldn't bear those in the house, so I would put on Miyazaki films instead, because I preferred that world building. I liked the feel of that world. So yes, world building is a multi-purpose tool. I think that is often best done as the architecture behind the story, and as sort of a tool that explains. I lost the first one. Off she goes. Goodbye. Enjoy your critique, or whatever it is. Okay. I think gone are the days when you could write Moby Dick and spend an entire chapter explaining how whale blubber is harvested. I think there was a point when that was really fascinating to people, because this was the one way they learned about that sort of thing, was through stories. We don't do that anymore, and I think that a lot of times, like for instance, if you're writing a lot of dialogue in between two characters and you're realizing like I need to break this up, that's one of the best places to put world building in, right? You need a beat, you need to pause, so you're going to have a particular bird's cry in the distance, or something that they notice about the world that, again, it just boosts a scene as opposed to being like the focal point of the scene. Or also a lot of times, and I think we'll look at this in some of the samples, but you'll get a paragraph of description, but then it will end by explaining like how that affects the main character, right? Or what they're seeing is a description of their mood. Who does that through the entire story is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Has anyone read Rebecca? That is basically that's her one trick. She's like, Manderley is all depressing foliage to reflect the depressing hearts of the main characters. It's always raining, except when someone has a revelation and then the sun comes out for just a moment. So she loves doing that sort of thing. It can be overdone, but I love it. So, okay, where are we at? We're doing good. That was 15. Okay. I'm hoping to get through some of these samples, and then what did I want to do at the end? I've got some action items, and then hopefully we'll have a chance to just talk through this. So I picked some of my favorite stories. I tried again to not just do fantasy, to cut a broad swath here through the literary world. Has anyone read Peace Like a River by Leif Enger? Oh, it's good. It is very, very good. I think it's a strange title because it doesn't, I would not have picked that title. It does nothing for me. I wonder sometimes, did an editor Were they like, no, this is what we're doing? It is a story about a father who works miracles and has some miraculous abilities, and his children, and it's literary fiction. It's a story of a broken family. I don't want to give it up. I'm not going to give up anymore about it, but I would highly recommend it. It's a good one. So here's a paragraph. Next morning, all geography lay snowbound. Roxana's gas pumps stood hip deep. The road was an untried guess. Maybe 2 feet of snow had fallen, or maybe 6, you couldn't say. The wind had whipped it into dunes and cliffs. It was a badlands of snow. So, maybe we can just this is meant to be conversational workshop, and it'll give me a second to drink some water. But I would just love to hear, literary devices, things that you notice in that stick out to you.
Short, choppy sentences.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The road was an untried guess. We know what that is, yes? It's a metaphor. And it's a great metaphor. Yes.
Untried guess, you can't see a thing.
Exactly. Anger he's really good on a line level.
That's incredible.
Yep. What about the
dunes and cliffs and badlands? There's a lot of geographic
mm-hmm.
terms.
Yes.
For me, it's relatable because that's what we get.
Totally.
There's that daring use of you. I would tend to avoid that, but it works.
Oh yeah, you couldn't say. Yes, so it's a very conversational tone, the voices in this story. And it is a story that's actually set, in this particular, it is set in the Badlands, this part of the story. But the voice lends itself to making you feel like we're having a conversation, right? All geography is metonymy, if you know that, metonymy, I think is what it is. But it's using a concept or symbol, right, to represent a whole. So it's not as if all geography actually lays snowbound. But to use that phrase, it's a great way to say it instead of just reaching for next morning there was snow everywhere, right? Yeah. Sometimes I think what you're trying to do when you're trying to craft this voice is you really are at the end of this I will have a list of all the literary devices that we talk through here, but it can be just as simple as looking through that list and being how could I take one of these and use it in this sentence to make the sentence more interesting. And I think some people it comes pretty naturally, and I think the more you do it, the more it comes naturally. So anecdotally again, with The Winter King, that was my first published book. I'd written 3 before that just glided gently into the trash can. But with this one, when I finished the first draft of that one, I didn't have a voice. It felt very vanilla, very kind of normcore fantasy world, but I hadn't actually grounded it in a specific time or place, even in my mind. And so I didn't know any of the details, right? But what's interesting in this are the details, right? The gas pumps, the dunes, the cliffs. So what I ended up doing was I went to the library and I picked up a bunch of books on the 900s in Sweden, Norway, Iceland, that area, and I just read through them. And if I found an interesting word, I wrote it down. An interesting, at that point they were putting the rugs on the walls instead of on the floors. I wrote that down for insulation, and then I went back through my draft and I just infused it with the details, and that was what made the difference. Now that I've written a few more books, I find that I can do that more earlier on. I don't have to wait till later and do it, but this is just to say, if you've written something already and you're how do I make it feel richer and deeper, a lot of it comes through the details. Good. So yes, we have metonymy here with all geography. It's also hyperbole, right? An exaggeration. And is that all I wanted to get with this one? Yes. Okay. I've actually got a second one from Liebinger because, whoa, that's a lot. Okay, we'll read it because it's a good one. This is them, again in the Badlands, finding, what are those geographical features called with the...
Geysers?
It's not a, I don't think it's a geyser, but it's a, yeah, where the fire's coming out of the cracks in the earth. They have them in the Badlands. You can fall into them on accident, or I forget the name. No? Okay. I meant to look it up before and then I forgot. But this is what they're describing. Fire and rising steam and specks of light. The specks pooling and runneling, then blinking out to be replaced by others. The fire came from a split in the earth that had opened and zigzagged away through the hills. Smoke and heat and sporadic low flames issued from this crack and from others branching outward. It was a fearful sight for young readers of Scripture, and Swede clutched my arm even as I looked at Roxana for reassurance. No, I didn't think it was the genuine hell. It was way too pretty. Yet Swede had read to me how the distinguished atheist Voltaire sat straight up on his deathbed moments before acquiring the farm, and with horror in his eyes described in journalistic particulars a geography of fire spouts and molten earth and dense smoke that moved in heaps along the ground. All in all, an account not far from the sight before us now. No doubt Voltaire had a moment or two of deep regret before departing into that country. I knew I was nervous, but down we went. So this is so interesting because this is in the same book that other paragraph was, which was just much shorter, sparser. But what does this do, like in terms of the difference, as I was reading it from that first one? What does it do for you? What do you notice about it? Like the emotional takeaway that you have.
Well, you have the good versus bad.
Mm-hmm.
Voltaire.
Yeah.
The other one was describing, the other one was describing the setting. This one is actually creating that good versus evil.
Yeah. So this is also describing a setting, right? But it's doing it in a completely different way. So the first one is like, here, let me give you some metaphors. This one gives you an extended metaphor. Really more what it's giving you actually is an illusion, right? Like a literary illusion that is telling you like this thing is like this thing, right?
It was like, yeah.
It's like, if you recall Voltaire on his deathbed, as we all do. But what's fun about it is that it also, again, it's giving you the voice. You guys haven't read this. but Swede and the main character in this is a young boy. Swede is his sister. And so they're pretty young when this scene is happening. But we learn so much about them just from this. Like, for one thing, they read stories about Voltaire to each other. They also know their scripture, right? So it's giving us a literary illusion that provides depth to the voice, but while also building out a really fun world. Polysyndeton. These will be at the end. You don't have to write these down. But polysyndeton is the, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right because I'm not an English teacher. But it's using multiple conjunctions to set a mood, right? So fire and rising steam and specks of light, pooling and runneling, smoke and heat and sporadic low flames. It actually just has like a cadence to it that's really interesting and enjoyable in a way that doing just like smoke, heat, and sporadic low flames does not. So, anyone else notice something in this that we...
There's a lot more emotion in this one than the last one.
Yeah.
It's very still.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
What
like
is
running zigzag.
Target audience, the age level.
This one is adult. It's adult literary fiction.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, well, it's written, the main character in the story is a young boy, but he's writing as an adult, looking back on his...
Nice.
Oh, good. I was going to ask what the reading level was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a little...
I know, you get words like runneling.
Like, I don't think that's third grade.
No. So I actually just handed this book to my 16-year-old because this would be right up her alley. Yeah. But no, it's not meant for... and even just the concepts in it, the whole thing is meant for an older audience.
Right.
But he does do a very good job of thinking back to what it was like to be a kid, seeing this site. Yeah. Okay, so we got also, but the other thing that's fun about it is it's funny, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's such a gift to be able to do too. That juxtaposition of like we're descending into hell. We aren't really, but this is how the character feels. And I imagine there are moments like that as a kid where you're like, what did mom and dad think they were doing taking us to this place? Where are we going? It feels unknowable as a child. Okay, I gotta move on.
Yeah, I had forgotten that happened to Voltaire, actually.
You're welcome. I know. Okay, so here's one. This is Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a young adult fantasy novel. Some of you maybe have read this one. She does what I enjoy, which is, in this one in particular, she writes a story that feels like it could take place on this planet, except she includes carnivorous water horses. So there's that, but otherwise, the Kabbal-Ishka, which is a Irish kind of folk legend of carnivorous water horses. That's what they are. So, okay, here we go. My heart's a low throb in my ears. Shh, shh, says the sea, but I don't believe her. I adjust my stirrups. Dove, this is the horse. Dove doesn't take her ears from the surf. I don't mount up. I strain my ears for any sounds of life. There's just the ocean. The sea glints suddenly like a crafty smile. That could be a reflection of a Kabbal-Ishka's sinuous spine. Kabbal-Ishka are the water horses.
Oh, it sounded really awful.
Yes, they are. It's quite creepy, but I think it's an interesting juxtaposition of the mundane, not in this particular thing, but you have this very nice kind of like island Bisbee, and then you also have like don't go in the water.
Is she expecting to be attacked at any moment? That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's just this. It feels because of the short, punchy sentences, you are on edge.
Yeah.
There's no humor in this one, right? So it's meant to make you feel a little unnerved. The sea glints like a crafty smile is a simile, right? So metaphors you compare through. You compare two things without using like or as. Similes you use like or as.
I'm curious, does she get attacked? Or is she
You'll just have to read it though.
She lives on the island, so she has a healthy fear.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels kind of nicely ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't know reading it whether she's actually in danger or whether
Right.
she's just paranoid.
Right. Yes, and I think that that's done really well, especially here with the personification, right? Says the sea. But I don't believe her. It's really fun. That's like a fun. Again, it's the voice of the character saying, like, I'm personifying the sea, and I'm also telling you that I don't trust her. So don't worry, I'm okay. But
You don't usually hear your heart unless you're stressed
Mhm.
and it's elevated.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good. Here's another. This is I actually have two from Scorpio Races because Stiefvater does a good job with this particular voice in this book. The Scorpio drums pound a ragged heartbeat as I wind my way through the crowds that fill the streets of Skarmoth. The cold air smarts as I breathe it in. The wind carries all sorts of foreign scents. Food that's only made during the race season. Perfume only women from the mainland wear. Hot pitch, burning rubbish, beer spilled on the stones. This Skarmoth is raw and hungry, striving and unknowable. Everything the races make me feel on the inside is bleeding out through the seams in the street tonight. So these are the horse races. So again, you can just feel the tension in this paragraph. What, any literary devices we notice?
You have the heartbeat again.
Mm-hmm.
She must like her.
That one's metaphor.
I
This-
feel like this one's kind of like, because it's like describing her like winding through the streets, but then like the descriptions kind of follow that quick movement of like you can imagine how she's like going through the streets and like
Mm-hmm.
I like the words
Exactly.
As a good tempo, because she started off talking about the drum.
Yes,
And
so
then-
she's winding,
Yeah.
and now we're seeing as she's winding, these are all the things that she's picking up along the way. Yeah. So it's a really good, again, it's a lot of concrete, hot pitch, burning rubbish, beer spilled on the stones. That's called asyndeton, where you, instead of, normally you would say hot pitch, burning rubbish, and beer spilled on the stones. But it's just, again, like a small literary device that that you can use. If a lot of it just comes down to the cadence. How do you want those words to sound? And I think in this case, it was a good choice because there's a little bit of an urgency there. She's seen this, she's seen this, she's seen this. We have here personification. This Skarmouth is the name of the town, I think. So it's raw and hungry, striving and unknowable. It is. Again, it's meant to put you on edge. And then we get this really delightful collapse of here's our description, and here is how it makes her feel, right? She's got the races on the way they make her feel on the inside is bleeding up through the seams in the street tonight. So we took our world building and we connected it to our character. So now we know this is her vibe. She's got this going on inside her too.
Nothing's safe and connected.
Right. Yeah. It puts you on edge. My daughter actually just read this one recently also and really enjoyed it. I think there's 2 Steve Otter books I can give her. The rest of them are off limits because they're inappropriate for a 16-year-old in particular. So, but this is a fun one. I have this goal to make young adult books for children again because a lot of young adult stories nowadays are not written for kids, and especially as Christians, it's you're wanting to hand your kids good, true, beautiful things, and it is a real dark place out there. So that's why I wrote mine. This is kind of like when my daughter's I want to read more young adult stuff. I'm like, okay, you can read this one. We still talk through, because of course you want to talk through stuff with your kids about, what in it is she calling good or true that isn't. But for the most part, it's a fun story. There we go. Okay. Oh no, how am I doing on time? All right, here we go. Terry Pratchett. Has anyone read any Terry Pratchett? All right. The wind howled. Lightning stabbed at the earth erratically, like an inefficient assassin. Thunder rolled back and forth across the dark, rain-lashed hills. The night was as black as the inside of a cat. It was the kind of night you could believe on which gods moved men as though they were pawns on the chessboard of fate. This is the opening to Weird Sisters, which is sort of the Macbeth, the 3 sisters, 3 witches. Macbeth. Actually, the very next line, which I didn't include, is one of the 3 sisters says, "When shall we 3 meet again?" And the other one says, "Well, I could do next Tuesday." So Terry Pratchett, he's one of those jovial atheists that I sort of hope at the last minute the Lord just grabbed him, because he has so much fun on a line level, and his stories are just so delightfully unique. But unfortunately, they're not, He's got the good, the fun in it, but not the true. All right, thoughts on this one?
The dark and stormy night is very much better.
Yes, exactly!
Why did they put the humor? He put something pretty humorous in there. Inefficient assassin. Who knows what a cat's insides look like? Really?
Nobody does, and that's, yes. That's like the, move on. So the voice in this one. So we're getting both world, right? We're getting this fun, it was a dark and stormy night, but different. With humor. And we're getting this promise. This is the beginning of the story. So we're getting the promise of a voice that's humorous, right? Nothing in this story is going to be really taken that seriously. It's a bit irreverent. It's a bit, it's tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. So you know what you're getting yourself into, right? Again, it's conversational. It was the kind of night you could believe on which gods moved men as though they were pawns. Yep, we've got our hyperbole, the exaggeration, and a good promise. Okay. I gotta move a little faster. Do we have, okay, now I'm gonna skip this one. I was gonna do the Steinbeck one, but we'll move on. Okay, here we go. Home, Marilyn Robinson. Has anyone read any of her? She's she's still writing, I believe. She writes, again, I guess you would like, she's a Christian. She writes literary fiction that's very, well, let's read it, and then we'll talk about it. You can tell me what you think she writes. One evening, Jack came in from the late twilight while Glory was settling her father for the night. They heard him in the kitchen getting himself a glass of water. The air had cooled. Insects had massed against the window screens, minute and various, craving the light from the tilted bulb of her father's bedside lamp, and the crickets were loud, and an evening wind was stirring the trees. It always calmed her to know Jack had come inside for the night. She knew he would be propped against the counter, drinking good, cold water in the dark, the feel and smell of soil still on his hands. But her father was restless. He had something in mind, an intention he meant to act upon, even in violation of this sweet quiet. He said, "I want a word with him, if you wouldn't mind, Glory." So who is our narrator in this story? Who's her idea?
It's Glory.
Yeah. So we're in Glory's head.
That was confusing at first
Mm-hmm.
when she uses the
They.
name Glory.
The which what?
Well, she says one night Jack came in from the late twilight while Glory was settling her father. So in that sentence, we don't know
Mhm.
who the narrator is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, well, this is from the middle of the book, so if you were reading it, you would know. But yeah, then they heard him. We still don't really know. We know it's either Glory or her father, right? Because someone's hearing it. But then we get to hear. It always calmed her to know Jack had come inside for the night. Yeah. So what is the feel of this month? The vibes, as you will. Is this Miyazaki or is this The Incredibles?
It's definitely like a slower kind of like feel to it. Like you're kind of looking in through a kitchen window, like you know, kind of feels like the South, sort of. Like
Yeah.
The insects and yeah.
Right.
Kind of story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that building, like you wonder, who is Jack? Is he a good person? And then
Right.
her reaction is really positive, like a very strong vote of confidence.
Mhm.
And then there's a kind of a jarring note at the end, like something different, something unexpected, something disruptive
Right.
is going to happen.
Yes, which is it's such a fantastic thing to do with a paragraph. So often in scenes, we talk about how a scene should have an emotional change from the beginning to the end, right? So your character comes into the scene feeling one way. They should leave the scene feeling a different way. There's like a positive, negative change. You can do that with paragraphs too, and I think it can make a story really pull you along. So this one starts out so kind of calm and quiet, like you said, and then at the end we get this violation of this sweet quiet, right? The father has something in mind, and we don't know what that is, but it changes the feel by the end of the paragraph, and it makes you want to read on because you want to know what is the father going to say to Jack? Yeah, but we also. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just got kind of stuck on what Jack was going to sleep out on the tractor.
Jack is her brother, and he just is a wanderer.
Oh,
So
sometimes he doesn't come.
Sometimes he doesn't
I'm
come
worried
home,
about
right?
Jack.
Not the father.
Well, and I think it's we get this great. It always calmed her to know Jack had come inside for the night. Like that's a good emotional beat for us to understand where she's coming from. But you can get a lot about who Glory is just from this one paragraph, right?
Also her caring for her father.
Exactly.
He's I interpret that he's in some medical need,
Mm-hmm.
and she tends to that medical need in
Yes.
addition while worrying about her brother.
Exactly. So we can see how she, like, springing up from the world of this particular story, which I think it takes place, it's a southern, more modern story, but we can see both the sort of slow feel of it and also how who she is influencing the types of things she notices, and how she feels responsible for like the people around her. So it's great, again, these great like concrete things, the insects massing against the window screens. We can all picture that. Craving the light, so there we get the personification of them from the tilted bulb. That's just a great line. It isn't just craving the light from the lamp. It's the tilted bulb of her father's bedside lamp. She does a lot of great, I don't know, I just lost it. The literary phrase where you do a repeating first syllable. Alliteration, there we go. So she did that with the smell of soil still on his hands.
So I didn't pick up the South. If it had been the South, it would have been he poured himself sweet tea.
You're right, it's
And
true.
I picked up the Heartland.
Midwest.
That might be what it was. It's been a while since I've read that, but yeah.
There's a sense of calm on the inside, but like ominous on the outside. And it's sort of like some of that ominous is coming in.
Yes.
The second and sentence about the insects.
The sentence about what?
The sentence about the insects, because it says, and the other gets around, and an evening wind was stirring the trees. Like,
Right. Is that polysyndeton again?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like your typical, like, peaceful sentence.
Mhm.
There's kind of that postscript on the end of it.
Right. It is almost like it's almost like her making a little mental list, right? She hears him in the kitchen, and it's like you've got this and this and this.
Like her tally for a peaceful night. But
Yeah.
there's something not quite right at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. You guys are so great. I always worry, you never know in a workshop if everyone's going to be like, I don't want to speak. And then I have to be up here doing it myself. Okay. We've just got 2 more, and then we'll talk about the takeaways here. So, okay, the whistling season, Ivan Doig. Anyone read him? Northwest.
Oh, Ivan Doig.
Yes.
I'm related.
You are? That's amazing. Well, I love his books. They are fantastic. Particularly this one. This is the beginning of. How are you related to?
My great aunt's husband's brother is his grandfather.
Oh my goodness! I love that.
Wow.
Is he still alive? I actually don't know.
I don't.
So I was gonna say,
I
give me an
think so.
introduction.
Yeah, but
This happened to me the other day with
each other.
Yeah, it's true. Peter Mayle, who wrote A Year in Provence and some other books like that, started following me on Instagram, and I was like, and then I looked it up, and he has in fact passed away. It was his estate that followed me, and I was like, okay. When I visit the back corners of my life again, after so long a time, littlest things jump out first. The oilcloth, tiny blue windmills on white squares, moored to colorless smears at our 4 places at the kitchen table. Our father's punch of coffee, so strong it was almost ambulatory, which he gulped down from supper time until bedtime, and then slept serenely as a sphinx. The pesky wind, the one element we could count on at Mariah's Cooley, whistling into some weather-cracked cranny of this house as if invited in. I just like reading words. They're so pretty. All right, thoughts on this one? If you were to pick that up, what would you be expecting, to get from this?
Future confrontation.
A what?
Future confrontation.
A confrontation? Ooh, yeah, because it starts out so, calming, which always sort of makes you think.
There's a sense of nostalgia, why is he coming back?
Yes.
What is he coming for? What's going to happen next?
Right. The back corners of my life. Yeah.
Very familiar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The sentence about his father is really humorous.
It is.
He sleeps as serenely as a sphinx after drinking really strong coffee.
The ambulatory coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we're getting our world building here is very strong. And it's creating a voice that either, you pick it up and either you're like, yes, this is for me, or no, it isn't. But it's very, it's nostalgic. It's very, because it's when I visit the back corner, it's narratival. We know we're getting to hear about something that happened to him in the past. But it's all rooted in a very strong sense of place. Yeah, it's a fun one. Okay.
It's striking, like with almost all of your examples, the words are all interesting.
Right. Yes.
Like it doesn't say he drank coffee all day. It says
Exactly.
he gulped down from supper time until bedtime.
Right. So it's strong adjectives, it's strong verbs. It's vivid similes, metaphors. This is the takeaway. That's the voice comes down to these details which you're drawing from the type of world that you've created. So for him, the fact that he's giving us this oilcloth, that's such a strong image of, I used to have an oilcloth on our table, and that was where it would was where, right where you would sit, those 4 spots. So again, that's telling us there's 4 people in this family. Like it's a nice, subtle way to get us there.
You've got the alliteration with slept serenely as a sphinx.
I know.
Just a great.
Just really, yeah. It is. It's really good.
We'll begin with the letter S.
All right. I think this is the last one. I think I have one more, but I'm going to skip it also. Okay. Holes. Have we read this one? You've watched the movie. Yeah. Holes is fantastic, middle grade. Just the most tightly plotted story I have ever had the pleasure of reading. Okay, here we go. The horizon lit up with a huge web of lightning. In that split second, Stanley thought he saw an unusual rock formation on top of one of the mountain peaks. The peak looked to him exactly like a giant fist, with the thumb sticking straight up. The storm moved off farther west, along with any hope of rain. But the image of the fist and thumb remained in Stanley's head, although instead of lightning flashing behind the thumb, in Stanley's mind, the lightning was coming out of the thumb, as if it were the thumb of God. Thoughts on this one?
I know that it takes place in the desert, but the hope of rain part really stands out.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know that.
Yes.
Wishing for rain.
This one is written for children, and it has the sentence formation, the word choice. It's much sparser, and there's less of like Ivan Doig or Lee Banger. We're reading it, and we're like, let's just sit here and marinate in the beautiful words. Generally, kids are not as like, I just love that turn of phrase. They're wanting to like. To see like what's going to happen next in the story. But the peak looked to him exactly like a giant fist with the thumb sticking straight up. It's a great quick simile that a kid's going to understand, right? But then he takes it, and I think he brings it somewhere really kind of interesting, right? If you haven't read this, he's currently, I think, lost in the desert at this point. I think. But he's in distress. So for him to make that parallel there, he's all alone, he's feeling abandoned, and he sees something, and to him, he thinks maybe it's the thumb of God, right? That takes your mind to an interesting place. Like, he's alone, but the thumb of God is there, right? Like, there's just an interesting, without being overly preachy, it isn't like, and in that moment, Stanley felt the Lord's presence firmly beside him. You know what I mean? But it gives you actually just enough of an illusion that I think that it can lead you to somewhere. And that story is actually all about those coincidences in life and how they are very clearly orchestrated.
It's pretty nice to get a thumbs up from God.
Right. Yeah. But again, even for being middle grade, the word usage here is all nice, flashing, sticking straight up, the web of lightning, there's a lot there that's still like interesting.
Well, I would take a completely different tack if it said thumbs up from God rather than thumb of God.
Oh yeah.
So if it did say thumbs up from God, I'd have a feeling of uplift and this, the thumb of God, I'm like, I don't know.
It's a little scary.
Thumbs up from God.
Well, I think it does show us that here, though. You've got the giant fist with the thumb sticking straight up.
That's the picture.
So we're seeing.
Yes, but if it closed with thumbs up of God,
But that would be too.
on the nose?
I think so. I think that's the point. Is I think for him, he's trying to show you 1 + 1 = 2, but he's not giving you the equals. He's just saying, here's 1 + 1, and I'm going to trust that you can get that can get there.
It took me a minute to get there. But what is it about? I had to think about, oh yeah, it's like it's not the middle finger. It's like
Right. Well, and it's interesting because the storm moved away along with his hope, but then the image of the fist and the thumb remained for him. So I actually think he's doing a good bit here with just the playing around with the idea of hope, of God, of being abandoned versus not. But again, without being didactic, and with something that maybe a kid would miss as they're reading through it quickly, just to see whether Stanley's going to make it. But it might work its way into your subconscious. So, yeah, good. Okay. Is that my last? Okay. So these are. You don't have to write them down, but you can if you want, or I'll leave it up afterwards. These are the ones that, at least that we talked about today, just through those different, the different samples, right? So, metonymy, using a concept or symbol to represent the whole. Oh yeah, you can take a photo. I'll be. Yeah. Anthropomorphism, something non-human behaving in a human-like way. I'm sure there are many more, but this was just as I was looking through those samples, these were the ones that stood out to me. And, I missed this one. This was in the Steinbeck one. I just skipped it because we ran out of time and I forgot I had a swear word in it. But it's the opening to Cannery Row, which if you have a chance to look that one up, it's like one of my favorite opening paragraphs because it promises a lot. But it's just, Steinbeck loves his lists where he's like, it's this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And they all come together. Yes, that's enumeration. But when you are, and again, with enumeration, it's all lists from the world that he's created that he's bringing up into his story to make it feel fresh and real and memorable and connecting it to the voice. So, action items. Build a world that feels unique. That's the end of my notes. Okay, so use tools to help you flesh that world. So like I talked about, Pinterest board, I didn't talk about that, but if you know Pinterest, or a mood board, finding pictures that are really going to, that are like what you had in mind, listening to music that evokes the feel of the place, reading comparative books, and if they have a particularly interesting word, writing that word down, After you do that, so that's the create concrete words, phrases, and images. I think it's really nice to just have a notebook full of those at your disposal, so that when you're sitting down to write and you're like, I want to reach for a simile or a metaphor, you can look at the tools that you have there, or the raw material, and put it into your story through the tools of the rhetorical devices that we talked about. Those literary devices that convey setting and mood so well. And then connect that world to your main character. Make his or her personality and voice sound like it rises naturally from the world. And then for me, this one's really important. Before I start writing for the day, I always go back and I reread the previous day's work to get me back in the voice that I'm going for. Or sometimes also if I'm just in a rut, I will pick up a book that doesn't necessarily have to be in the same voice that I'm trying to go for, but it's just, I try to find those books where when you read them, you're like, I can tell that this author loves writing because of the joy that they're bringing to every sentence. So I will keep one of those books beside my computer so that I can just pick it up and soak in some really good words before I start writing. It's fueling the creative tank, and it's going to make your voice so much more memorable, unique, distinct. Because again, it's going to come from you and what you find funny, memorable, interesting, those things. And so again, I read Pratchett or P.G. Wodehouse when I'm wanting that ironic, tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, because that was just how they saw the world and how they liked to the things they like to point out, you know. If I want to read someone who's probably going to make me cry, but also think deeply about relationships, I read Marilyn Robinson. You know, like you're just looking at like, what am I in the mood for, and what type of mood am I wanting to create for my readers using my world and my voice. I think, I did it 4 minutes to spare. That's it. Thanks, guys. This is my first time trying this particular workshop, so that was fun.
Yeah, that was real good.
Oh, good. Thank you. Any questions? Last minute thoughts?
What was
What
the
did I miss?
What did you miss? What was what?
What was the C.S. Lewis book that you talked about?
Oh, Till We Have Faces. Till We Have Faces. It's like until, but it's T-I-L-L. Till We Have Faces.
Thank you.
Yes. So good. What was your question?
Did you have a list of all the schools?
Oh, yes. Well, it's just this,
Okay.
that right there. So, yeah. Phew. And again, I'm sure this is not all of them because I'm not an English teacher, but this was just the stuff that I noticed as I read through. So, yes, enjoy reading good books with good words. All righty.
Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Really helpful. Very, very.
And if you want, yeah, I think I'll be. Well, I'm doing some of the one-on-one things at some point, but I'll also be down at the booth. I'm on the left-hand side. If you want to come chat more at some point during the day.
Awesome.
With my books and my information on the Camperdown program. So, okay, should I turn this off?
Wait, I'm gonna take a signature first.
Oh yes, no,
I didn't reach it from back there.
Oh, you.
Get a little closer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
Do you have a pen on you? Because I
Here you go.
have books and I kind of want to.
Totally. So do I have a pen? I don't.